Up a little bit, the subordinates replied brightly. Quickly, each one a corner digging hard. Meanwhile, beneath the ground, the photographer is still looking for his way. Worried, he asked the photographer where the final exit was. I feel like we've been gone a long time. But he said seriously that there was no way out. If there is a way out, those people weren't locked up in the hall. To make death so bewildered. She asked, bewildered, do we have to die here? Rejection is not really, because everyone in the hall came in from the outside. There must be a way in. Out. I just hope that Chen Lin will find us a way out. I think the exit is right there at that weird school. He laughed softly. They think they're going to Lam. Death is hard to understand. How do you know they'll find you there? Suddenly, there was a noise coming. The photographer said it started. Waving your hand to death over here. Let's go. Make her full of confusion can only go follow him. Prediction of the photographer. That's amazing. Maybe the future of me and him getting married. Go where there is sound. In front of you is the front wall. He pressed his ear against. Listen, Goon. He raised his hand and touched it, when suddenly a rumbling sound came out. Suddenly, a secret agency is opened. The photographer was a little surprised. Then the dead go inside. 2 people. When I went in, it was dark inside. In a stone room filled with warrior armor. There's also pictures of resources and gold coins. I can see these things in front of my eyes. They deserve to be photographed on the spot. The photographer speaks up. This place is probably at the bottom of the cardinal's courtyard. Of course, the money of the ancient city is hidden here. Go back to your stomach and pick a few. She nods her head in agreement. Reminder photographer. Of course, we shouldn't take too much. Otherwise, the Chen Lin sword will not be satisfied. I ask you what and why. He laughed softly. He glanced at the lamp and said it was enough. Love is a very mysterious and rare kind of love. Even though they don't have the strength to fight. But it's extremely demonic. If you practice to the end of the period, you will be able to. It also has a powerful effect. But they were destroyed. In the days of the Snow Maple Empire, there are only 7 souls left. It's made up of 7 spirals. Later, because the thief stole and wandered everywhere. This one is one of those 7. The photographer quickly came to get the lamp in his hand. Fun, when the angel decided that he could reconcile the 7 spirits. I don't want all the dogs to be trash. But my soul is still too small. It is impossible to love the spirit at too high a level. This picture is perfect for me. He put the lamp into the ring. Then, aesthetics. In my previous life, I had to sell it. Not worth his love at all. And then he turns to the uterus and so on. How about I finish choosing there? She laughed and said, I can choose some. Give it out. Photographer exclaims the essence of black gold love hole. And try the essence of the magical wind and snow legend. The eyes are not bad. Then he pulled back on the ring and laughed. Point your hand to the side and be right. And there's a step up there. But is this a stopper or a way out? The photographer looked up in surprise. Maybe this is their way out. Meanwhile, above the cave there was a flash of light coming in. Chen Lin Sword's subordinates. The cave was discovered. Through the cave. Hurry up and inform the old man. Chen Lin came to observe. He said there was a way down. Let's say this is the place, and let's get down. The photographer here is also stupid. It seems to be dug. But this road is afraid of falling rocks. Or we can just stay here and wait for them to come down. Death wonder. We've been down here for so long. But the photographer objected. I think there's no way we've come to this. How far are they? Suddenly, the sound of his legs plummeting. The crowd is buzzing up. I want to be the first to go down. At the same time, it feels like butter. The sword quickly went down. It itches people. When again I can see that the photographer has appeared here. He laughed and said, "You're missing me." That's really good. He also sighed with relief, thinking of the old lady. We found you. Ask why you are here. The photographer replied like this. 2 days ago, I got out of the ex-con's hands. Then I couldn't tell the story. Then the subordinate screamed furiously. When you see the gold, look, our old man is rich. Lin's swordsman laughed happily, and immediately the power goes down. He is stupid to hold his hand. There are so many treasures in front of you. How much is it? Lin's sword turned to speak. According to our plan, you can choose what you like. The photographer replied, I took it. You can take the rest. He also said I get what I want. The rest is yours. The sword said that okay? Tell everyone quickly. Use the space ring quickly. Then he came back to the sword. Are you sure they've been here that long? The most valuable thing is claimed to have been taken by them. That's why I don't care about the rest. Lin looked at him and asked what he meant. Of course, the police have to say, they're going to throw up those things. But the sword whispered, tell them to get here before us. If they take all these things away, then we can't say anything. Let alone people leaving us this much. It also seems to be very meaningful. It made the Department of Natural Resources scream out to Chen Shao. I swear what's in their hands. They're all items of value. Don't you regret it? Not willing to stand. Trying to advise against what's in their hands. Of course, everything is expensive. But Tran Lam distorted sword heard the ears glaring at the national treasure. So that the cause can only be cold. But hold anger in my heart. Tran lack a voice, I don't even know you. You and Harry have a conflict. So now you want to take advantage of me. Don't dream. Turn your face straight when you're done. Make the cause just patiently endure. Looking at the back of the sword, I thought to myself if Chen had said to help them. This guy's waiting. Meanwhile, Chen's sword is coming to pat the photographer on the shoulder. Brother, if not for you, I don't have these precious things either. Tran Lam's sword, I owe you one. Something will help later. The photographer happily nodded in agreement. Lin's sword is just thanking me. I didn't mention what I got when I got this. No blame, he later became one of 3 young men. The most outstanding of the top style. On the contrary, there are some people. He glanced at the source. But sighing in disgust. You're right, Chen. Let's go when we're done. It surprised Lin to ask why. One of them came in and announced that it had been arranged, old man. Photographer bow, I can get out of the hands of a spirit lover. I met the Dark Lord. Looks like they're looking for us. That makes the sword hard to understand. Ask the Dark Guild what their target is us. The servant said, I don't blame you for feeling a little love. If they're injured, that means they fought each other. Tran Lam's sword expressed regret. Look ahead. That said, the other parts of this underground site. The photographer replied, I've been scouting. Nothing but organs and traps are not few. The sword sighed severely. Take a moment and order everyone to go. The officers quickly received orders to obey. On the LAN side at the moment, when she heard the noise in front of her, it was very emotional. My tearful eyes rushed to me. Call the photographer, you're back. And everyone who sees it will grin their lips. LAN weakness fun, body kneading with a pair of grapefruit, ROI plump. Go to photography. And hugged him. Thank you for saving me. If not, I'm already in the monster's belly. Makes the photographer want to breathe with the grapefruit. You think that someone is going to risk saving you. Then he told me to let go. LAN's expedition, that city had a dead man. 5 people are missing from the darkness. Team Union 5, and we are also safe to return to the holy city. Everyone is talking loudly. One asked the blue-haired, do you know the auction a few days ago? Of the Holy Spirit. The blue head asked in surprise. A lot of things are sold at sky-high prices. The Kier continued, heard, these are all stuff. That's the sword Chen Lin got from the ruins of LAN City. That's what the blue-haired guy recognized. No wonder a lot of expeditions have been there lately. It's an idea to get people together. When they're excited to launch ahead of the photographer. Then he laughed softly. What we get is actually beyond our expectations. But the men of the Dark Guild saw his face. Now be careful. To get to the Silver Realm quickly. Think about here. He went back to the library with his 2 best friends. When the rest of the crew saw the retreat, he made an unpleasant face. 6 adventurers jump up and down. If you take me with you, I'll make 10 billion. The photographer said. That time, they all reached the level of Copper Bar. Except for IP and Viet Ra. They all have real combat experience. It took up to 6 people, including the police. If you let everyone follow, sure. 6, I was surprised to hear that. I didn't see him last night. Ask him if he's back. He's not with Team 5. But 6 adventurers are sure he'll make it back on his own. As a photographer, if you agree, it is also possible. But a second later, he gritted his teeth. SAO can be. Anti-prong photographer, say Vietnamese judges only set the homogeneous bar scene. How did he get back on his own? 6 adventurers said they must be on their way to meet that AI. The surprised photographer asked if his companion SAO. He's thinking. If you are the companion of the dark Vietnamese judge, the World Holy Assembly. After a few seconds of speculation, he seems to understand the problem. When I get upset, that's what Ra is. It makes it difficult for 6 people to understand why. What do you know about SAO? The photographer suddenly said nothing. Sit down in the chair. And then he said nothing. I'm just guessing something. The act of opening up. The photographer made the whole crowd cry out, come on. Guess what? But he said it's a long way off. And so 3 days later, retreat has reached the scene bar Dong to come shots. Everyone on the street is talking about photography. You know what, lady? Thank you, La Industry. I go to primary school every day to find a photographer. Others say, I heard she made a statement in front of everyone. I will pursue photography. The second stop is not fun, almost a fight. On the other side are discussing, have you heard anything? The 2 of them were fighting for a man. They finally fight and fight. And at the same time, there's another message out there. 6 questions photographer. You climb the wall every day. If you get caught, why? He laughed and said it would be beautiful. He glanced at her and asked if she didn't climb SAO. If you go to the main door. I met you even more unlucky. Even though SAO has also reached the celestial realm to stars. Just jump one. 6 exhilarating questions to say. What did you do to her? And we've had 2-star copper bars for a long time. The board photographer said he didn't do anything. She's really puzzling. Suddenly, there was this noise. What are you guys doing in class? The photographers panicked. Jumped back over the wall to escape. On the other side of the LAN Academy Genius class. Everybody's doing 8 things non-stop. At this time, the purple head led the group too. He is the red leaf of the snow. He laughed and called the judge. Heard, your fianc almost got into a fight. It's just because of a man. I heard Death say that. She doesn't seem to like you very much. If so, do something to make her go away. To avoid a day when she's cuckolded. When he finished, he laughed. And then there was the laughter of the others. Make the judge look dark. The judge said to my judge's woman. If we don't get it, don't let others ruin it. The rosehip saw the juror's unpleasant expression. He turned cold and said, my sister and I are good friends. If you are going to kill, don't let me know. He said. He led the group away. Leave the judge sitting in a puff. I think the snow is so cold. Don't think that, if you have a great love for God. To Kwang Wee Kai City. Sooner or later, it is Goddess will. Thinking of this, he grinned slightly. Hands clenching their shirts trying to endure. On the side of the photographer now, 6 adventure laugh, haha. He's dancing a little bit outside. Don't be happy. Suddenly, someone in your group is calling for a photographer. When you hear the call. When someone comes back, they realize that it is the end. She smiled softly and said good afternoon. Lam Ruli scratched his head. I haven't seen you in a few days. So much more beautiful. Listen to this skillful girl. He made 2 friends look back in wonder. Meanwhile, my son was ashamed of that praise. I told you not to joke. Then gently approach the photographer. According to my brother's previous instructions, I sold the pile. The dead are left. This is the money, Lam Thou said. Then she brought the ring to the photographer. Make 2 people 6 adventure and park trash, glaring horror. Soul. Then the cold whispered. That's not our mirror, goddess. Why listen to a photographer like that? Over there, she received the thank you ring. Fast 6 adventurous face to ask the goddess stop child. You and your wife. Who won? Stop asking me what you're talking about. When I looked at her, I stopped blushing. I'm just going to talk to her about a few questions, Harry. You like that girl? He has a pale grin on his face. Tell them it's possible. That girl is too annoying. Just don't mind her. To stop the surprise. 6 adventurers wrap around the shoulders of photographer, laughing hi. I have been practicing hard these days. My whole body is sweating. We're going to the bathroom, baby. Go with the goddess. I was so nervous to say, I don't want to. The photographer strangled her. 6 adventure says this 6-year-old boy's mouth is not real. Do SAO. Don't worry, she hesitated to nod. 6 adventure village to photographer. You dare say I have a dog mouth that says nothing. She stood in front of me like a goddess. The disdainful thing. My friend doesn't want to pair with you. That thing doesn't mean anything. So we're all buzzing around. I'm like an avocado, and I have to laugh. At the same time, there's a blonde on the road. The subordinates pass by. He passed the photographer playing with his friends. He looked at him a little familiar, but also quietly left. When you're far away, then the servant called him that little devil. Serious culture, I know. The man asked if he needed to kill him. He immediately said, there is no need to kill people in this city. It's extremely dangerous. More. He saw me just now, and I'm not unusual. They basically don't recognize us. But on the left side right now, he was suspicious of those people. Identical characteristics. These are the people I met in the old town of Lan. I thought maybe he didn't recognize me. Then he laughed and asked to stop. Who was that just now? She's stupid enough to ask people who pass by. They are the people of the Old Testament. Extract Tin, 9 Lu. There's a branch of the gods. Listening to this makes photographers stupid. This city in Kwangwi Kai is not safe. The forces are too complicated. I don't know how much darkness there is. The Union is operating underground without my knowledge. With the current power, it's the preservation of life that's important. You need to get support from many other powerful forces. I thought he told his friends to leave. We're going to a place. The fisherman asked where to go, but he said go and he'll know. Whereas where the photographer wants to go, people are. They're all messing around here, including the silver-bearded old man. He's with his partner. Fast forward to the entrance of a large building. This is the Buddhist Training Association. Think of the last battle of your past life. Monk Training Association. Some people fight to the end. They are people who can be trusted. 6 Filter Face turned to ask, what is a Monk Training Association? The photographer explained, is the powerful force of a top stylist. It has the greatest power in Kwangwi Kai City. Even though there was a bit of tomorrow. Stop listening. One side says more than learning to knit and practice medicine. The young people today, to take cultivation more seriously. So the new Monk Training Association is normal like this. 6 puzzling adventures. What are we doing here? But the regent told us to get in here first. Let's say go inside. When I see the shark, I also have to say, it's cold. Not many AIs are all new students. Deep thought. There are probably 6 people in the position of elders right now. The lowest is an intermediate monk training with 2 senior monks. There's no master teacher to manage. Complicated. Suddenly, someone came up to the photographers to say hello. That's the pretty pink girl. She said welcome to the Monastic Training Association. Excuse me, is there anything wrong? The photographer replied bluntly, I want to come to practice. This made the pink-haired girl flinch for a few seconds. And the friends on one side are astonished. Then the pink-haired girl laughed, haha. They told me to call me Little Lan. You're very welcome. Little Lan said, Master training is divided into the Great Master. In each level, it's divided into primary. Senior high school, you've come to register for junior high school. Are you ready? I want to be a beginner. I have to read 10 books. And before he finished, the photographer interrupted with a laugh. I'd like to report the name of a master of basic knitting. Make small LAN quiet people. Then laugh out loud, haha. It's not impossible. But to become a master knitting beginner, you have to read it in the book. A junior master. I usually spend 10 years studying. Then I went to the photographer and asked the little guy, if you read too little, if you don't understand it, It's dangerous. Young is right. She worked hard, but the photographer laughed. Of course, I know this. You don't wait for age, right? It took 5 seconds for a small LAN to be sprayed. Then you can talk about it. Want to register? It takes 200 yuans to pay in one go. But the photographer answered a small question and let me in. Turned to say, my friends are waiting for me. I'm going for a minute. Everyone is waiting for you to come home for dinner. And when I stop, I'm happy to encourage you to try. Little LAN saw that face, thinking it was a child. It's not that easy. Haha, nature again wasted 200 love in DTO. Then take the photographer inside. They quickly arrived. Master Knitting Training School. Little LAN introduction. This hallway is a master's knitting training school. Each student must enter an exam room. The people who saw the photographer talked loudly. Little LAN continued. Complete a complex knowledge test. After being trained by a few beginner masters. Read the exam to enter the next round. The photographer laughed softly and understood the eyes of the old. All eyes on a boy like him. Right now, a big black guy came to ask the photographer. Your son. What do you want to do? He laughed softly. Of course, I want to live with you. And participated in the master knitting contest. When he heard this, he thought and laughed. He poked a kid with an unclean nose. What is the master poem knitting flag? Devil, you've come to the wrong place. He calmly asked me who you were. He said coldly, I am a disciple of the Master of Medicine. Nin Department Family. Cosmetic facial hair removal. Rao is a member of the family. Look at that look of contempt. It's the same, of course. Then I asked for the medicine. Smiling, you deserve it. It makes the department a little nervous. In history, we used to have 3 great knitting masters. 6 people are intermediate knitting masters. And more than 20 of them are primary knitting masters. Maybe not worth it. The photographer said, what's the point of telling us what the glories have been? Now the whole family has exactly 1. Master Knitting Elementary. It's also called the practice of knitting or SAO. Nin department is paralyzed. The cold said that, why? Our department will be quick. To become the 2nd primary knitting master. The name of the mouth stinks of milk here doesn't even go away. This is the knitting school. This is not a place for you to play. At this time, the crowd also invited Theo to laugh. But the photographer is still confident to know after the exam. When he finished, he went to the door. In front of everyone's laughter. Nin department silently called, I think I've tried to walk this knitting path. More than 15 now. 2 times the master knitting contest is 7 failures. If you're just a kid, you can. Meanwhile, when you get inside, close the door. To say hello. The 2 old men in white sitting inside. Ask if this is a student. You seem to be in the wrong place. But the photographer laughed softly. Knitting Master Poetry School. The 2 teachers are not wrong. It's a little confusing for the 2 old men. The fat man can talk. You can see there are 360 exams. You will have to choose 20 of them. At the same time have to answer 90% or more within 0200. You can enter the next round. Photographer goes to say 20 sheets SAO. 2 masters who choose to go. Makes the skinny guy a little surprised. Then laughs softly. He said he wanted to prove himself. No cheating or SAO. He stood up and agreed. And then he picked up a stack of preset questions. Do these things. The photographer went to get these. Sit down at the table with a pen in your hand. And then write a post. I am very confident thinking too simple. Two old men sitting next to me, knitting training level of Kwang Wee City. How can it be so backward? Look at the photographer and tell him to stop. He answered the exam as fast as lightning. Makes him thin. Answer so quickly. I even thought of a sentence. He can't answer either. The fat man glanced at him and said he was just a kid. Just write casually. Curious old man stood up and told me to come and have a look. He came to talk about 16 uses of primeval herbs. Be surprised to say. The answer is pretty good, no missing anything. The fat man came to talk. Process of knitting fishery. It also writes very clearly. The 26 steps are perfect. Makes two old men look silly at each other. The old man suspected of cheating. But the fat man said no. These are all questions of your own choosing. Meanwhile, Li is still very passionate about writing. When the pen is lifted, the thin man stood there sweating. Tell them to write a whole page. Hurry to take a look. It's amazing that everything is right. He told the fat man to come. You look back at this answer. Fat man confirmed. And alcohol, more than what we read in books. You look at the photographer. You have to be a genius. On the Nin side, right now, he's sitting shivering, squeezing out every word. Think it's obnoxious. I remember lying in my heart. Everything that I don't yet belong to. From previous exams. I can't believe it's harder this time. Half an hour and only 3 pages. I suddenly thought of whether there was a float in the ring or a risk. Then raise your head. I saw the eyes of the old judge. Tell yourself you can't. Just look. Wait for the following sentences. On the photographic side, an hour after the start of the exam. Then he's done it. The two old men competed to see his answer. Then he asked the two masters. How do I answer these 20 pages? The two judges glanced at him. Look at him and sweat. The fat man spoke up. He must be a genius. It can be restored. Knitting Training Association. The skinny guy approves is not wrong. What do you think the photographer is saying? Maybe I answered quickly and correctly. I think that's wrong. 3 people looked at each other quietly. The old man laughed. Haha, I don't know what kind of world you are. I am Yan Min. He's a master of basic knitting. Stupid photographer then laughed softly replied. The two teachers kept calling out the names of their students. Photography students from heaven and earth. I listened to the 2 stupid people and laughed. Praise the talented young photographer. Cao is very modest. Congratulations, answered all the questions correctly. Can we talk practically? Of the knitting process, is it okay? The photographer said of course. After hearing what the photographer said, makes the skinny guy gasp. Photography is unusual. Wait a minute. Let's give your answer to the president. See if I can recruit you directly to the club. The photographer smiled softly. And he bowed his head and said, please, to masters. With that polite but humble attitude. Make 2 old men jerk off and laugh. Haha, let's go. The 2 old men quickly gave the photographer's exam. Go to the president. They're going to another exam room now. Take the exam and go inside. The police department is still sweating. It's like saying, shit. When he looked up, the old judge looked at the exam. Then raise your head and sigh. Make Nin department tense, while the sweat just kept pouring out. He held his head in despair. I'm in the dark, blinking my eyes. 2 hours after the master training competition. Sigh out of the exam room. He turned to look at everyone around him. Then everyone else's face is sullen, sighing dejectedly. Aestheticians are all sighing. Only he can take the exam. He lamented the threshold of this master's knitting practice. That's high. Just as the photographer calmly whistled by. The spirit is extremely confident. It makes the department a little confusing. On the side of the Monastic Training Association, the old men called the president. Inside the president's room is a mess. And he's sitting around practicing knitting. The old man hurriedly called the president. Skinny old man came. Tell the president there's a test for a contestant. Invite the day to see. The president is a little annoyed by being disturbed. Put out the fire and aesthetics bother us. While we're practicing knitting. Come and hold up the exam. This bearded old man is the inflammatory neck. He's the president of the Knitting Association. Master Knitting Training Senior. He was surprised that they all got it right. But he seriously said that's normal. Let him come to the next round. Then he turned to look at the fat man. Then say seriously, if you can do this test. It's just a 10-year-old, 34 years old. Makes the neck horribly inflamed, asks what the distortion is. The fat man confirmed that, Mr. President. Cold deposit inflammation. You think you're colluding with me? A child who's only 13 years old. I have read a lot of books. To answer all this. He looked at the two old men and looked at them. Yang hurriedly bowed his head and said, how dare we? She ordered him to go to the office. Then notify Yang to come. This is not to be told to anyone. Even if some of the other elders understood. Right now on the left. He's surrounded by people looking at him like a stranger. The bald head asked laughing, my brother did the right thing. The photographer replies with this. Because those questions are so easy. There's no impression. It's amazing how confident people are. Nin department saw that. I think it's cold. Declare your little devil. If you can answer a part, then we can take off our clothes and run around into rounds. Nin department continues to talk extravagantly. If your answer is only 1/10 right, we're also willing to strip and run around into circles. The photographer came back laughing, so go. Make the Department of Natural Resources. Smoke is blowing through this Num village. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps. Yan Ming breathes red. Everyone saw it. The man in white recognized that he was a monk. Hastily puffing chest upright. But the light passed over them. As soft as the invisible. Then smile and say, follow me. Photography makes AIG people hard to understand. Then Yan Ming announced, you have passed this contest. Make the AI stare in horror. The photographer said yes. They make the people here like trees. I can't believe the kid could have passed. The bald man asked if he was just a kid. It's like the 7 gods watching. How come he can't seem to stand? He told me not to pass the exam, and the master of knitting laughed at him. It's just a little devil. I have 7 failures. Then he ran away with his ass. The village said it must be dreaming. The rest of you are talking. Looking at it like that is a genius. It's a genius. But I'm over 50. You can't even pass the first round. It's a shame the bald head is just now.